How's it going, everybody? So once again, we're going to be discussing dopamine precursors. So in this video, we're going to go over proper dosing, and we're going to be talking about why oftentimes less is more. There is often a bell curve response, and the amount of, per se, tyrosine or L-Dopa that you take, in which the effects might change, or you might experience diminishing returns. We're going to be discussing how to optimally experiment with them, how to cycle, or if you should cycle, or if you need to cycle. We'll be discussing the research on toxicity and potential dangers, and what successful dopamine precursor takers typically will do and how long they can take these things, as well as synergistic compounds and activities you can employ to really optimize the effects that you get from dopamine precursors. So, dopamine precursors are an interesting subject. Very often, I tell people not to take dopamine precursors or to even focus too much on dopamine per se from a supplementation standpoint, because most people will actually get way more bang for their buck tackling the kind of lifestyle factors that influence dopamine. Things like removing excessive stimulation. Like, that's the number one dopamine drain, where no matter how much L-Dopa, mucuna, tyrosine, or whatever that you take, no nootropic substance is going to offset the negative side effects of too much social media or arousing websites, too much scrolling, too much novel stimuli, too much overstimulation. In most people's cases, what people would call a dopamine detox, which is a funny word for it, or no surf, as it used to be called. Check out Reddit/no surf, or read the book The Shallows for more information on that. But that would actually help people's dopamine systems way more, and they would often find they probably don't really need dopamine precursors as much as they had previously thought. However, for many people, it can be very challenging, if not, it could feel and seem impossible to come off the excessive stimulation without extra help from something like a dopamine precursor supplement. So, and, there's other special cases like being an athlete or working night shifts, shift work, being sleep deprived, or just having, a condition that mimics the effects of ADHD, where you just seem to feel like you have extreme attention deficit or whatever. Oftentimes, these dopamine precursors are the ticket. They are probably some of the most effective so-called nootropics that you can take, and you will feel like an effect. Like, you will notice it, okay? Because a lot of things are kind of like, I kind of think I notice it, or it's hit or miss. But with these things, it's like you take it, and you're like, wow, I know this is working, okay? So lots of people, I've seen some people try to claim that dopamine precursors like L-tyrosine and phenylalanine, they'll only work for you if you're deficient in amino acids, and they try to tell you that you get plenty of it through your diet, and that any extra you get through supplementation won't have any effect because of rate-limiting enzymes and things like that. The fact of the matter is, it's absolutely false. I personally eat like 250 grams of protein a day. At least that was my count from yesterday, and I've been on a very high protein diet for a long time. And without fail, if I take tyrosine or phenylalanine or mucuna, a source of L-Dopa, if I take that on an empty stomach in an effective dose first thing in the morning, I will feel a bump. Like, I will feel an increase in my motivation, my focus, and my drive, provided it's the right dose, taken in the right context at the right time. And the reason why that is, despite the fact that I have such a high protein diet, is because taking amino acids, or really any nutrient, I'm starting to realize, well, not any nutrient, but the ones that actually do something in your body outside of just fill in nutrient deficiencies, but specifically amino acids, okay, like theanine, tyrosine, phenylalanine, tryptophan, 5-HTP. When you take these substances on an empty stomach, okay, in an effective dose, so basically, obviously, you have no competing amino acids for absorption, okay? And so your body will actually uptake a substantially higher concentration of that particular amino acid, and it will boost whatever function it is that amino acid is a precursor to above baseline. In some cases, far beyond baseline of what it would normally see if you take it in the context of a full protein, like a whole protein complex, a large peptide. And so, in the case of L-tyrosine or phenylalanine, with no competing amino acids, you take it by itself on an empty stomach in an effective dose. Studies show a substantial increase in dopamine, and so you don't get that when you eat like regular protein meals. Okay. Yeah, even if your protein intake is norm, you'll see a substantial effect, okay? And the thing is, you don't see toxicity, okay? When it comes to phenylalanine, DL-phenylalanine, and L-tyrosine, there are no negative side effects, withdrawal symptoms. There are no like overdose type of symptoms or downregulation of dopamine receptors that people claim. Even in long-term studies, we're talking specifically, there was a study where they were taking something like 15 to 30 grams of tyrosine a day, up to 3 months. They saw no negative repercussions at all. And then when they came off of it, no withdrawal symptoms or negative after effects. So, and the same goes for phenylalanine, right? And so I'm sure most of y'all watching this already know phenylalanine is the very first step in the dopamine cascade and the catecholamine cascade, followed by several other steps, and then L-tyrosine, which can turn into thyroxine or go along the dopamine pathway, and several others as well. It also is a precursor to melanin, which can increase the incidence of moles and things like that. But there's no, like in phenylalanine or tyrosine, there are no studies showing negative effects, even at like substantially high doses. And in fact, with phenylalanine, DL-phenylalanine to be exact, there's many studies that show complete remission of depression, which is fascinating. So, and this kind of reflect, and we're not even getting into L-Dopa yet. We'll get into that in a bit, but this reflects most people's anecdotal experiences as well. The vast majority of people who have success taking tyrosine and phenylalanine, they talk about taking it every single day, no cycling, for extended periods of time, and they see virtually zero negative consequences at all. And they can come off of it, no withdrawals. The only withdrawals they report is maybe missing the actual physical effects. You know what I mean? And that mimics pretty much any substantially helpful substance or even like exercise. It makes you feel really good. And you stop doing it for a week, if it really had an impact on you, of course you're gonna miss it if you take it out of your stack. You know what I mean? But no like real withdrawal symptoms. So that's important because you see a lot of people fear-mongering, saying L-Dopa is gonna like, mess you up like real bad, like cause all these like, crazy side effects, but you typically don't see that, okay? And we'll talk about mecunapurins and L-Dopa later on in this video, but for tyrosine and phenylalanine, virtually zero negative effects. And if anything, you just see positive benefits, okay? So most of the positive benefits, lots of people take tyrosine or phenylalanine to prevent the crash that they would get from taking a harder stimulant like Adderall or whatever. So if people are taking ADHD medication, they'll take tyrosine or phenylalanine to prevent the crash and to make their prescription even more effective. Okay. Now, a little side note, something like agmatine sulfate, which I actually have being delivered to me right now from Amazon because I couldn't help myself. I'm going to try that a little bit later. Has also been used, and very often people talk about it as a godsend for reducing tolerance and stuff like that, and making things like Adderall and stimulants more effective. But anyway, yeah, so that's tyrosine and phenylalanine. Boost motivation, focus, drive, energy, a whole slew of things, okay? And at higher doses, it might help you sleep, which is interesting. So, yeah, it's like a miracle supplement. You can kind of think of it as, right, if you take it right. So the big thing I want to get in this video, though, is that, so I mentioned how lots of people have taken crazy doses. I see people commonly insist you need to take at least 7 grams of tyrosine or DL-phenylalanine in order to make it effective. 7 grams minimum. And everyone thinks that's crazy. Like, bro, it's a dopamine precursor. Like, aren't you scared? But the problem with that is fear-mongering on the internet, you'll almost always see, is unfounded, except for cases like ashwagandha. But even then, I think it's exaggerated and overblown. And the more anecdotal, like, fear-mongering you'll see more nocebo effects happen too, where people just parrot information and it grows and grows, and people just like, based on expectation of something messing them up, it actually can. People, for whatever reason, completely overlook that and think I'm full of crap when I say this, but it's a very real phenomena that I've seen in myself when I had anxiety disorder, and I see in other people all the time. And dopamine precursors are like the biggest source of this. No, the studies show 15 to 30 grams a day of L-tyrosine can be taken up to 3 months with no effects at all. They actually have measured dopamine increases, so they know it's working, and there's been no negative side effects. Usually the most pronounced effects at the higher doses is offsetting sleep deprivation and being able to increase reaction time and being able to work under stressful situations if taken before a stressful occurrence happens. It was studied on military soldiers going into like war simulation and things like that. So very powerful, and many people take really high doses of it for a long period of time. So here's what I really want to get across, though, is that a lot of people notice their best effects in low doses. I'm talking 250 milligrams a day of L-tyrosine, okay? Some people insist when they take N-acetyltyrosine, okay, which is the acetylated version, that they can take less and experience greater benefits from less. Now, I don't know how accurate that is. The studies are typically showing plain old L-tyrosine is the most effective form and all you really need. But some people say they can get away with like 50 milligrams of N-acetyltyrosine, whereas with tyrosine they have to take like 10 times as much. So it's worth experimenting with, and that's going to be the general theme of this video for practical recommendations, is you really need to start on the lower end and work your way up, okay? DL-phenylalanine, 750 to 2,000 milligrams is a good range to start with. Regular L-tyrosine, 250 milligrams to about 1.5 grams is a decent range. But the thing is, some people will notice that if they take 2 grams of tyrosine, like if they take a lot, like a higher dose, 2 grams, which really isn't that much. They take 2 grams of tyrosine or phenylalanine or any dopamine precursor. They take a high dose, and either they feel no benefit at all, or they might feel more tired. They might feel really tired. And that's actually happened to me when I took 6 grams of L-tyrosine yesterday, actually. I felt exhausted, and that's happened to me many times, especially if I stack dopamine precursors. If I take DL-phenylalanine, tyrosine, and mucuna at the same time, which I don't recommend anyone ever do that. It's not necessary. I actually get the opposite of what most people would take these things for. So at higher doses, you might get like a anti-anxiety effect. Like you might get like a de-stressing effect. Something, when you talk about things that lower cortisol, right? Like rhodiola and ashwagandha, that feeling where like, man, I just feel like I took too much, Tyrosine seems to have that effect. And there's actually a lot of people that claim or basically refer to tyrosine as an adaptogen, which I think is interesting, especially considering it does seem to work in a similar fashion with the doses that you consume, as well as its effects shown in studies. It helps the body, at the very least, tolerate more stress. And so, yeah, I've found the dosage reflects that as well, specifically with tyrosine. Taking a higher dose will make me feel relaxed and a bit tired. And D-L-Phenylalanine has side benefits like helping people with pain and endorphin release and all these types of things. So that's important to kind of take into consideration. And so, you might want to start off trying like 250 milligrams of either tyrosine or N-acetyl tyrosine, and maybe even D-L-Phenylalanine. That's a very tiny amount. Okay, and the important thing is to take one at a time, and have like at least like a 2-week experiment. And I know that's very hard for most people. Most people are neurotic. They cannot experiment or try one thing at a time. People are all over the place. Like, no, like after 4 days it didn't work, therefore it's garbage. I'm trying something else. It's like, bro, like, calm the fuck down. You're not gonna ever like find your solution if that's the way you experiment. So, like 2 weeks, for 2 weeks, start taking one dopamine precursor. So try regular L-tyrosine, because that's the one that most people experience something with, right? Start off with 250 milligrams, right? Just once in the morning. And in the first day, you should notice something. This is something you should feel within an hour. So in the first day, if you don't feel 250 milligrams in the morning, remember, empty stomach, trying no protein after 8 p.m., and then try dosing your L-tyrosine, in the morning, right? Whatever. And combining it with intermittent fasting should hypothetically make it more effective. And this has been my experience. Also, because intermittent fasting promotes the release of norepinephrine, it would make sense. Well, anyway, the next day, try 500 milligrams in the morning and see if you feel something. And if you don't feel something after 2 hours, try adding another 250 milligrams, right? And then after maybe like 5 days, try 1 gram in the morning, okay? And that's how you should kind of experiment with any of these dopamine precursors. You start at the low end, see what happens, and if it doesn't give you the desired effect, after a couple days, you add a little bit, like double the dose, starting with something low like 200 milligrams. And then the other thing is, after a while, okay, after you tried 1 gram, like you worked your way up and you tried the low doses, try something substantially higher, like 3 grams, okay? And this is where a lot of people mess up, is they're like, 1 gram didn't work for me. Fuck this shit, right? Meanwhile, the effective dose in studies is typically around 6 grams a day or more. They get some like 100 milligrams per kilo of body weight or something crazy like that, right? So even up to 10 grams a day, that might actually provide you like some kind of life-changing benefits that you weren't aware of because you didn't actually dose it properly. So that is very important. Very important. Okay, if you're going to mess with dopamine precursors, you must understand the effects you get at 1 gram are completely different from the effects you get at 10 grams, okay? And it's not something like, oh shit, I'm going to I feel like I'm cracked out. You might actually notice, oh my God, this makes me want to sleep, okay? So there's that. That's D-L-Phenylalanine and tyrosine. They'll have different effects. D-L-Phenylalanine might actually be better in some cases. but the dosing and the caveats and the considerations are going to be very similar amongst those. Okay. Now we got something like L-Dopa. Okay, so L-Dopa, levodopa, okay, is a pharmaceutical grade isolated form of L-Dopa concentrated from the velvet bean or the dopamine bean. There's also other things that contain it that people don't realize. Fava beans, even things like green beans, okay, foods that people eat every single day actually have a certain amount of L-Dopa in them. There's a lot of people that might be getting grams of L-Dopa per day and not even realize it because they're eating in the form of food, provided cooking it in certain ways can completely kill the L-Dopa, as well as the protease inhibitors, which are protein digesting enzyme inhibitors, interestingly enough. Cooking it can degrade the L-Dopa. But anyway, some things. So, and I've been taking these, I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video. I've been taking dopamine precursors in various forms since like 2014, and I've done vigorous experiments with them with different dietary paradigms too. When I first started taking them, I was like a vegan. You know, it doesn't surprise me that higher doses actually had a higher effect at that time. Anyway, and now I'm eating way more animal protein than ever, 250 grams a day or more. But anyway, mucuna pruriens. So I've tried very high L-Dopa concentration extracts, like I'm talking 40% L-Dopa, you know, and I was taking like 2 grams or more a day of the whole of the total extract. So I was probably taking like 800 milligrams of L-Dopa per day from a mucuna extract at a certain point. And I found probably the best effects ever came from the mucuna extract with the high concentration of L-Dopa. That has really given me some of the craziest benefits on dopamine and motivation and focus, and just like completely changed my perception of living. Like it is literally like I was living in a different life, I was a different human. Everything, like just seeing life differently, completely differently when I was taking mucuna. It's pretty amazing. The problem is it's hard to find a good mucuna extract that gives you enough percentage of L-Dopa while also giving you enough of the whole herb to offset some of the negative side effects that can come from the pure L-Dopa. So I'll get into that in a bit, but with L-Dopa, you need to be very discerning and have a lot of working understanding and knowledge of what you're getting. And this is a problem with anything and everything in nootropics and freaking supplements and nutrition, is like people just go off what they heard from others, they go off what the general consensus is, or they have one experience, whether it's good or bad, with one type of the herb or the extract, and they immediately generalize it to all situations. And you know, and people out like they talk crap to me because I am experimenting over and over again with certain herbs or nutrition programs and things like that. And like, bro, you already tried it already, and it messed you up. Why do you keep trying it? Haven't you learned your lesson? It's like, well, I'm actually a little bit more intelligent than that, and I understand the scientific method, and not all extracts are the same all the time. And so anyway, with mucuna, okay, you have 99% L-Dopa extracts and mucuna pruriens that I see on the market right now, okay, at the time I'm making this video. That is too much L-Dopa. And then there are like the Now Foods mucuna dopa extract, which I've had good experiences in the past, particularly with lower doses actually. And then you have other various extracts out there. I had a good experience with Hyperion Herbs. They had their own extract. However, they canceled that because, you know, Hyperion Herbs, the CEO, is all about sustainable health practices that have a wide scope of benefits. And mucuna is like a very specific thing taken for medicinal purposes. You know, it's not a tonic herb. So they quit selling it. That was one of the best I've ever taken. It was amazing. Then the brand Nutricost had a mucuna powder, a mucuna extract powder that was 40% L-Dopa, and each dose was like 800 milligrams. So you're getting like, 300 milligrams of L-Dopa per scoop or whatever, which was a lot. But it was also only 40% L-Dopa. So that's a little bit under a 1-to-1, like a extract L-Dopa to whole kind of herb constituents. That's like the perfect concentration. But they changed the powder out of nowhere. So it used to be a 40% L-Dopa extract, and the powder was white. It was a very high quality extract. And from what I found, when you buy a mucuna extract and it's white powder like that, and it tastes kind of like has a very subtle sweetness to it, it tastes kind of chocolatey, like white chocolate, but it's not like substantially sweet, just very slightly, kind of like a numb, dull sweetness, like white chocolate taste. That is how the highest quality mucuna extracts have always tasted to me. And it's a white powder. But they changed it. Now it's a brown powder, and they changed it. It's the label now says organic mucuna powder. So it's no longer an extract. And the reason why they changed it is because dumb people who have not done their research were in the comments talking crap about it, saying, "Oh, it's a white powder, like it's probably just cornstarch, the high quality extracts I've taken are all brown and blah blah blah." And it's like they've never taken a high quality extract. This shit was $20 for like 100 servings or 200 servings or something crazy like that. And it was the most effective mucuna extract I've taken that wasn't Hyperion herbs. They did not know what amazing value they were getting. But now it's gone because people didn't research it. So anyway, with that, I was taking a half a teaspoon twice a day. And that's a lot. So I was taking something like 800 to 1,600 milligrams like twice a day. The amount of L-Dopa I was getting was pretty high. You know what I mean? Per day, I was probably getting 1 to 2 grams of L-Dopa or something like that. I might be offshooting. But it was at least a gram of of L-Dopa per day from mucuna extract. So anyway, I've seen a lot of reports of people taking high doses of mucuna like that for long periods of time. Some people claiming a year or more, and they've been doing it for years. And with mucuna, I have noticed very noticeable increases in muscle mass, in strength gain, like fast, in feelings of well-being. Like it literally, like I feel like what a lot of people report increases in testosterone are supposed to feel like. And there's a lot of studies that actually show mucuna can increase luteinizing hormone and offset prolactin and all of these things. I felt like mucuna was the real deal. Just the problem is it's hard to find a good extract these days. You want a concentrated extract, but you don't want 15% L-Dopa. That's not a lot. You want like 40% L-Dopa. And the closest thing that I found to it now, because Nutricost doesn't sell it anymore, freaking Hyperion Herbs doesn't sell it anymore, the Mucuna Dopa Now Foods extract might be the only one. It's just I've found that extract has been inconsistent over time. So I don't know where to find a good mucuna extract anymore, but that shit was really effective. And so the research on mucuna, again, actually shows with mucuna purins, even at a high concentration of L-Dopa, you don't see the negative side effects you see with the drug levodopa. So levodopa will give people oftentimes, I forgot what it's called, but it's like I think tremors of the hands and stuff like that. but they'll have like usually there's a very negative kind of syndrome that's associated with L-Dopa consumption. Okay, most people find or the studies find no negative side effects, especially the side effects of L-Dopa are not seen in whole mucuna extracts. So, and what they found also is when looking at the actual kind of mucuna purins bean, what you find is it doesn't just have L-Dopa in it. So it's been speculated to contain MAOI inhibitors, I think MAOI-B inhibitors specifically, and things that can kind of modulate the rate-limiting enzymes that can kind of prevent that overflow of like dopamine production from L-Dopa, basically. Or it can encourage the turnover of excess dopamine into norepinephrine, epinephrine, and whatever other metabolites might be created and turned over from it. So to put it simply, there seems to be other compounds in mucuna, even in commercially prepared mucuna extracts, where they're like higher concentrations of L-Dopa, like 40%. But especially in the 15% L-Dopa that you commonly find, you'll see it in Now Foods, you'll see it in Himalaya, you'll see it in Gaia Herbs, and all these other mucuna suppliers. Swanson has one. You'll typically see 15% L-Dopa as like the minimum concentration, and these ones are, in studies, it seems highly unlikely for you to experience any kind of negative symptoms that warrant like fear mongering. Okay, and when you see, I mean, it should be obvious, but when you see people who are like, yeah, man, I took like one capsule of this mucuna extract for like 3 days, and it like made me have like a psychosis of schizophrenia or something, and it's now been 8 months later and I still experience it. Like, those people are there's probably something else going on. Like maybe they're trying to use mucuna to like treat a disease, a mental illness, and it's not the mucuna but the actual mental illness that is the problem, right? If you take mucuna for 3 days at a low dose like that, it's probably not going to have long-lasting effects 8 months later. But the other thing, and I know something like schizophrenia is a different story, triggering an attack, but the common thing you'll see is people like, yeah, I took freaking, one capsule mucuna for like 4 days, and now 6 months later I have this long-lasting depression after stopping that hasn't gone away, and I just can't, like, I feel like I want to kill myself and all this shit. It's like, bro, mucuna didn't do that. Or anxiety, like, it really fucked me up, like my damn anxiety attacks, 8 months later are still happening after stopping mucuna, and you find out they were taking like the whole bean, actually, that's not even that effective, right? Or not even that powerful for like a couple days. So you gotta be real careful. You see that with things like lion's mane and reishi mushroom, and people are not even taking an extract or even the effective form like the fruiting body. They're taking like a mycelium that's probably mostly oats, and they're taking a really tiny dose. This is very prevalent, this fear-mongering, when people aren't even taking an effective dose. This effective supplement. It's hilarious. It's crazy. And it actually highlights a greater problem with the human race. I just think it's better to just give up, because most ignorance is not going away. It's normalized. So in conclusion, you need to be very discerning with the type of mucuna that you take. Also, the whole bean powders, actually, I find it seems to have good benefits. A lot of people might notice some relatively noticeable benefits from mucuna powder. So the Nutricos mucuna, organic mucuna powder, from what I found, isn't bad. It's legit. The only thing is, it's just not the extract they used to have, and they just kept the same listing and just changed the label, which is unethical in my opinion. So, taking a teaspoon, you know, like 3 times a day of the whole powder might be a good idea. There's another one, you'll be able to find it. I don't remember how to pronounce the name of the brand, but it's like Banyan or something. And I have that. You can buy like a whole like 8-ounce bag for like $15 or something. And their Mucuna is pretty good. They seem to specialize in Ayurvedic herbs. It's like a chalky taste. It does not taste like the other Mucuna powders I've tasted, but there's people with Parkinson's that notice a benefit. So try taking a whole tablespoon of the Mucuna powder that's non-extract and see how that works. But the normal dose is about a half a teaspoon taken in some hot water. I blend it with coffee, but boiling it's probably not a bad idea either. But yeah, blending it with coffee is not a bad idea. So I was going to talk about different things you can take alongside these things to make them more effective. I'll just briefly touch on this because this video is already pretty long. So agmatine sulfate is something you can take at about 500 milligrams to about 1 gram. That should it should lower the tolerance of caffeine and stimulants as well as dopamine herbs. It's commonly touted to be an NMDA receptor antagonist, I believe. But I believe that's it. But the mechanism of action is pretty complex, as most cases, and also it might be dose dependent. And so you take agmatine sulfate, and it might be a good complementary thing that boosts the effects. Other things you can take, obviously, people talk about stacking ECGC, epicatechin gallate, or matcha green tea, or some kind of like green tea extract to modulate that, to modulate some of these rate limiting enzymes and make things like Mucuna or Tyrosine stronger. I've taken green tea extract along with the Dopa Mucuna extract by Now Foods. Now Foods has a green tea extract, and they have ECGC extract and a Mucuna extract. So I just took the green tea extract and Mucuna together, and I think that was a good synergistic thing. Although I forgot, but I thought that actually ECGC modulated tyrosine hydroxylase. Maybe I'm wrong though. In that case, it shouldn't have any benefit for Mucuna. But I don't remember, so don't grill me for that in the comments. I haven't researched that for a while. Usually my videos are just the knowledge I have off the top of my head. So anyway, other things you can take would be, try ginkgo biloba, especially an alcoholic extract, and you can take that along with the regular powdered extract as well. Seems to increase the sensitivity of the dopamine receptors themselves, and I think has a good synergistic effect with things like Mucuna. Also, other things you can take, rhodiola rosea, taken in a small dose, a low dose, because higher doses might have the opposite effect. I'm talking like 200 milligrams a day. You can get it from Nutricost or another kind of like bulk provider. Not bulk supplements, because they don't have rhodiola rosea. They have rhodiola crenulata. You got to be very careful about that. Make sure your rhodiola rosea extract is actually the rosea extract and has 3% rosavins to 1% solidaricides and not the other way around. Very important. And there's other things you can take that are not crossing my mind. You could try taking a good 6-year-old root Panax ginseng powder, Siberian ginseng, let's see what else. Yerba mate seems to have some unique benefits on not only dopamine release, but also protecting dopamine neurons themselves. Consuming a good kind of guayusa tea, goes by the brand name of Runa, but you can find it in like cheaper brands like Anthony's brand or Davidson's tea, I think has one. Davidson's I have, it's good shit. And basically it contains L-theanine and other polyphenols that seem to prolong the effects of caffeine, offset some of the jittery effects you might get from typical caffeine sources, and also has kind of like regulatory kind of boosting effects, you can think of it as, on the dopamine system. So I like combining a tablespoon of guayusa with a tablespoon of yerba mate and like 4 tablespoons of coffee grinds in my coffee maker, and just brew that throughout the day. Combine that with like a mucuna powder or something, or a low dose mucuna extract, or like 400 milligrams of like N-acetyl tyrosine or something, right? And that seems to have a good kind of effect. Maca root also seems to have some effects on increasing the effectiveness of dopaminergic substances. So in going for like a 30-minute run, if you don't fill the dopamine precursors now, go for a 30-minute run and see what happens. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say in this video. I have other videos you can check out, but the biggest, on dopamine precursors and stuff, so definitely subscribe for more on this. But the biggest thing here is you need to experiment with the doses. Don't be afraid of trying high doses if low doses don't work. And just be very vigilant and persistent with your experiments, and be very thorough. I'll talk to y'all next time. Let me know your experiences with dopamine precursors in the comments. Talk to y'all next time.